All right, we are in Chapter 2. You already watched my amazing trailer introducing us to Chapter 2, Foundations of World History, Prehistory to 300 CE. So we're starting 2.5 million years ago when the earliest humans appeared on Earth. That's a long time ago. And it was a really simple life. We talked about what they were called, and they were called hunters and gatherers, which meant they moved for their food. Everything depended on food, so they were moving around and trying to find food. The last ice age was ending, the climate was cycling, warm and cold periods, and humans survived by adapting, which means changing. We had talked about that. There's a few hunter and gatherer groups today, but not too many, and there are clues about the past, and we look at clues by gathering evidence through archaeologists, and it suggests that they were largely self-sufficient, which means they could supply stuff for themselves, and they moved from place to place to be sure that they were able to supply themselves with enough food. They lived in caves and built shelters, used animal hides, etc. So most of the stuff that they used is no longer used today. The best tool that they had was stone. We talked about the Paleolithic and the Neolithic, the Old Stone Age and the New Stone Age, and that is called that because of the use of stone. And so the stone tools were used predominantly, and those transferred to metal tools. And these are things that we find. So that's why we get the two periods. Remember, we talked about how historians like to categorize and put things into periods, so we have Paleolithic and the Neolithic time period. So when we found these tools, we began to learn a little bit more about what they used them for, and how advanced their community was. So their quote-unquote toolkit included stone flakes, which were sharp pieces of stone, could be used as knives to butcher the animals, and there could be used to hunt the animals. What was left of this flake was a really jagged edge, and this might have served as kind of a knife for cracking things open, cutting things, and nothing went to waste here. They used the stone for weapons for fighting. Knowledge of how to make turn a stone into a tool or a weapon was passed down family to family, and it was part of their culture. The word culture is an important word. It means the shared beliefs and practices and traditions of a group. We know that from our theme, cultural interactions. So families would pass down what they knew, and people would get better and better at building these things. So tool-making techniques developed, and all of a sudden the technology gets a little better, and for the first time we began to use needles. So they got sharp points, and they were now sewing clothing. So you can see how the technology advances. That's the big point there. We go from just basic stone to incorporating more tools, and development of the spear and other tools. So now we're still on the quest for food, and that's the most important thing here. So now we use tools to hunt, to gather the berries. We made traps to catch things, and maintain a successful economy, the economy being how we get what we need. We had to move. So we had to be able to relocate differently. So there was migrations. We would move from place to place, and mostly stick along what we talked about, bodies of water. So we'd stick by rivers, but move from place to place. And when it got colder, we would migrate. So having to be able to move is very, very important, and mobility was something that we needed. Now, there's different hunting and gathering groups. We talked about if our class was a clan, not a Call of Duty clan, but a clan, a group of people, a family group. We would move around, and we were mostly family groups, and we were ranged from about 30 to 50 people. We shared foods together and worked on things together, and the economy was just based upon everyone getting what they needed. So men did the hunting, women did the gathering, etc. And we kind of traveled very, very far. 50 to 100 miles would during a year would not be uncommon. So imagine that, 100 miles is taking us almost down to Lansing. So that's just kind of what we would do. We would move from place to place. But at the end of the Paleolithic, or the Old Stone Age, there began to be some things changing, some things becoming more complex. And there was characteristics that set us apart from traditional hunting and gathering groups. Populations began to grow. Our camps began to be more technologically advanced and less able to move quickly, so we began settling down a little bit more, and we finally discovered planting seeds. And the next step that leads us to the next step, the agricultural revolution, and it's an amazing, probably the most important event in history, where we learn that we don't have to move for our food anymore.